gross, the picture of the bologna?
Bologna.
I mean, if you don't like mayonnaise, then that definitely looks disgusting.
Not really. Very small quantities of mayonnaise. Very small.
Depends on the sandwich. I don't eat it on bologna. Give me mustard. Lots of mustard.
My mom used to...
I basically just want to taste the mustard.
Mustard. I never ate mustard growing up because my mom hated mustard.
Like, that's how much I put on. When Terrence brought him in the studio, it's me and Gerard sitting there. And I'm like, I haven't had a bologna sandwich since I was a little kid, David.
I mean, I'd probably eat it if you put it in front of me.
David was the same way, but we were making them ourselves.
I crave it.
And I brought it to the table. I showed it to him. I said, you see all that mustard? This is so I don't have to taste that one piece of bologna on my sandwich. I'm having a mustard and cheese sandwich.
Chainsaw none? Honored.
About a minute and a half, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome in, guys. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk Jags, AFC South, fantasy football, everything else that's going on in the NFL, mostly Jags. So the guy that we're having on today is a butcher from Cleveland, and he made meat panties. He took the bacon for the straps and then sewed together like flank steak for the front and the back.
Did he wear it?
No, it was just on the table.
Oh, okay.
But I kind of want to know how it tastes. You have to cook something like that and taste it, right? If you're gonna go through the,
I would guess.
It was like butcher's string too that tied them together.
Can you hear anything now? Or?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, 30 seconds.
Call us today so we can help you. There are no fees or costs unless you win, and the consultation is always free. Learn more at justiceforjacksonville.com. Law offices of Brett Hastings, where the injured find justice.
Hey, Tony, last week you said, I just hope there's no surprises. There's nothing but surprises in that game.
True.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
The 6-3 Jaguars are in sole possession of first place in the AFC South, facing the winless Browns up in Cleveland today at 1 o'clock. Good morning, Tony Blythe.
Good morning.
Are y'all basking in first place, or are you much more worried about getting to 7-3?
I'm basking. I'm enjoying it.
I mean, so here's my thought process. I asked Frank Frangie the other day, I said, okay, is it a little too soon and too much if I bring champagne to the show on Sunday and pop it as I talk about the fact that the Jaguars are in first place in the AFC South? And he said it is too soon.
No.
That should be saved for when the Jaguars officially make the playoffs.
No way.
I said,
I drink champagne every single Sunday, so I
Are you
every
champagne
Sunday.
and cookies? Are you part of the champagne and cookies crew?
I should be, but
I mean, if you got
do
the
bring
champagne anyway.
Well, for drinks at tailgates and stuff, champagne is like the best drink that you can have with the lowest amount of calories. I made that switch a couple years ago, and it's been fantastic ever since.
I always thought it was vodka with like water, but
No, tequila and water.
tequila
is next.
water, that sounds horrible.
Well, tequila,
We know the whole
water,
hierarchy in this
yeah.
room somehow.
Tequila,
Somehow.
water, lime juice is
Me, I
another
thought it was
one.
like a celebration of a win. Y'all, it's a diet plan. I had no idea.
Well, when you spend years and years having beer at tailgates and you make that switch, you know, it's a noticeable difference.
Well, there we go, first place, and I would definitely say we are basking in it, but we will talk a ton about the Cleveland Browns. A week ago, let's go back a little bit, we saw one of the wildest finishes ever at Everbank Field as the Jaguars beat the Chargers in overtime. Blythe, how important was it for this team to get a close win?
Well, we've said all season that we've seen this team blow out other teams, and they've won, I think, multiple games by more than 20 points. And it was last week. I know there was a lot of criticism on the quarterback play in the final 2 minutes, rightfully so. But this was a game that we saw that normally when Blake Bortles has those last-minute interceptions, it's completely deflating to the rest of the team. What we saw last week is them battle back and refuse refused to quit and refused to lay down for the Chargers, and they battled back through all of that adversity and ended up getting the win. That's the first time that we've seen that all season, and that was an important step for this team to take. And the very next step for this team to take is to beat a team that they should beat in the Cleveland Browns.
Tony, the Jaguars made some roster moves yesterday, promoting first-year wide receiver Larry Pinkard from the practice squad, activating fourth-year defensive back Calvin Pryor, he's a safety, and rookie wide receiver D.D. Westbrook from IR. The Jaguars also then waived second-year defensive tackle Sheldon Day and third-year wide receiver Jalen Strong, who we never actually got to see, and then placed seventh-year wide receiver Aurelius Ben on injured reserve based off of his knee injury. Any surprises there with some of those moves?
I mean, I guess if there's a surprise, it's Day being cut, just in year 2. But I think you could see the numbers game catching up to Day on that line, and he's an undersized guy. And I saw Hayes Carline sent out the tweet yesterday talking about the quote that he remembered from Bill Parcells, talking about if you're going to make exceptions on your roster, essentially, then you're going to find out you have a roster full of exceptions. So I think if you expect guys to be a certain size, to be able to do certain things, to have some versatility, to play on your line, then you expect it. And when you get a bunch of guys that can do it, I get it. Day is a guy that when he had the opportunity to pass rush last year looked pretty good doing it. He hasn't had many opportunities this year. They were dwindling by the week with them, especially with them adding Darius and the other things that they've done on this defensive line. He happens to play 3 technique, which would be the deepest position on the roster with or without him. It's not like he adds all that much for them as far as week to week. Was he a guy that could develop down the road? Potentially. But I think it also speaks to where this roster is right now, that they feel like they have a guy that would be a developmental guy, that they say, we don't need to develop him anymore. Like, we have developed what we want to develop on the defensive line, and we're ready to move on from it. As far as the impact of those other moves, obviously D.D. Westbrook, we'll probably get our first look at him today. I think the activation of a guy from the practice squad to play wide receiver is an indication of just how they feel about their depth right now at that spot, and they need some help on special teams with Ben going down. That may be the most key part of that entire thing that went down yesterday. Ben is an impact player on all 4 special teams units for this Jaguars team. He's the cover guy. He's the gunner. He's the blocker. He does it all for them on special teams. Not having him is a big loss for this Jaguars team, and it's one that may not be talked about that way when you see that list. It's like, oh, we're getting D.D. back. What are they doing with Sheldon Day? To me, the name to look at there was Aurelius Ben. Yeah,
it's unfortunate for him. He's been one of those players he's done everything the team's asked him to do. Do you think Sheldon Day will clear waivers and make it to the Jaguars practice squad or no?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too.
He's a talented enough guy that he's on somebody's radar somewhere. Especially, he played well enough last year too that he's going to be on somebody's radar somewhere. But he wasn't even being able to play much here. He was getting a handful of snaps a week. It's not like his opportunity was going to expand anytime soon with what they have on that line right now too.
Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette had almost a month off, but was held to 33 yards on 17 carries against the Chargers. Then this week didn't practice on Friday due to an ankle injury. He's technically listed as questionable. Blythe, would you rest him today?
I would absolutely rest him, and I think that you rest him for the foreseeable future, because what you have is, I was looking at the numbers. Cleveland has a very good rushing defense. I think they're ranked 3rd in the league, but our next few opponents in Arizona and Houston and Seattle all have a top 10 rushing defense as well, and I think you're going to need him either for the stretch run or for the playoff run, and so I think you rest him against sort of lesser opponents like the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I think it's been a concern because of the way that we saw him hobble off, and then he did have 28 days off, and then he didn't look like himself really last week, and you saw at one point during overtime, first of all, he wasn't in the game for a good portion of the second half, and then we saw during overtime he ran out of bounds, and that's really not like him. He's a guy that would like to run people over versus running out of bounds. Right, and so I think it's a big concern if we're talking about like a high ankle sprain that we don't, because obviously we don't know, we're not going to find out any more information, but that's something that can linger throughout the entire season, and obviously the run game is not the same without Leonard Fournette 100% healthy. And then I know Brent Martineau said this week he thought that Chris Ivory, he had heard that he didn't feel so well last week, so I don't know if that was part of why we didn't see Ivory as much, but it will be interesting to see what they decide to do at the running back position today.
It's going to be, I mean, it's all hands on deck at this point, and if Fournette can't go, then Ivory's got to be your workhorse.
The Browns are 1-24 since passing on quarterback Carson Wentz. Tony, as for the quarterbacks in today's game, what are your expectations for the Browns, Deshaun Kaiser, and for the Jaguars, Blake Bortles?
Look, there should be opportunities for Blake, right? Cleveland is a much better run defense than they are a pass defense, so there should be opportunities for Blake in the passing game despite the weather and whatever the wind's going to do up there in Cleveland today as well. On the other side for Deshaun Kaiser, what should your expectations be? The guy's been a turnover machine all year. He should continue to be a turnover machine today. I think the offensive line for the Browns is actually pretty good. Even without Joe Thomas, it's been pretty good.
And their center, though, I know is banged up. We'll get to the injury report later.
Oh, yeah, they got a bunch going on.
He has 3 different injuries listed for just himself.
Oh, yeah, they got a bunch going on, but they've been pretty good up front. I mean, they added Zeitler this offseason. That's a team that landed him. Maybe Jaguars fans forgot that. It's a guy that a lot of us wanted here, but he's playing guard for the Browns. They've been okay up front. What they haven't been okay doing is Deshaun Kaiser making any kind of decision at any time. He's thrown an interception basically once every 20 times he drops back to throw. That is pathetically bad from NFL standards, and he's going to continue to get the ball because they need to see if they really have blown this second-round pick with Deshaun Kaiser and if they're going to go get somebody else in the next draft. So you keep throwing him out there because you're 0-9, and who cares if you go 0-16 at this point? Just means you're going to get the number 1 overall pick. So he's going to continue to go out there, but against a team that can rush the passer and force turnovers the way the Jacksonville Jaguars have been able to do this year with the secondary that they have, I mean, it ought to be a feast day.
And Kaiser, he left the game last week against the Lions. He ended up coming back in the game, but he left the game with a rib injury. So I'm expecting him to, I think he might get sacked a lot today and end up leaving the game early.
Yeah, that he was limited during practice on Wednesday and then participated fully. But, you know, you never really know how healthy someone is with a ribs injury. That, to me, is one, especially as a quarterback. You can feel those every single time you go back to throw the ball.
And he isn't going to want to get hit.
No, certainly not. Tony just mentioned weather, so Blythe, for fans up in Cleveland and for those of us down here in at least warmer Florida, how cold is it?
It's 38 degrees by kickoff, and it's going to stay around that temperature level, but it's also going to be really windy with gusts up to 30 miles an hour, and there's going to be snow flurries throughout the entire game. So
is it 38?
38 degrees.
Oh, that's dangerous. 38 and rain of any sort, that's danger. Like, you would much rather be 25 if you're going to have to go out there and play and know that it's just going to be snow. It's snow.
Yeah.
It's not sleet. It's nothing like that. It's just going to be snow just above that freezing line. That's,
and windy, so expect the passing game and the kicking game to be a little messy today.
This would be the first November game with temperatures at kickoff under 40 degrees for the Jaguars since November 19th, 2000 at Pittsburgh. So it's not a team that knows this weather, certainly at least not in November. The Jaguars have several players on the offense banged up, but I knew I was going to do that. I did it. I do it a lot.
You said it right.
Rookie wide receiver Dede Westbrook is active after being on IR all season with that core muscle injury. And I know he posted something last night saying, you know, he didn't expect for this to happen, but it's going to make him humble and a lot hungrier to play in his first game today.
200 yards, right?
That's what he said. He expects 200 yards, but what are your realistic expectations for him?
For me, our question on Friday on Jaguars Today, or Thursday, I think it may have been Thursday.
Yeah, because Friday's the 3 keys.
What are your stats? Like, what do you think the stat line's going to be for Dede this week? And I said 3 for 52. And I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Good average.
Yeah, it is. And I think he's a good enough player that he's going to get loose on one. I don't know that it's going to go the distance, but I think he'll get loose on one. And you just heard the weather report, too. Like, how much do you expect him to want to throw the ball?
He won't break 100 yards.
Right, in this game. I mean, and he might. He's an athletic enough guy that he only needs a little bit of daylight to go. Right, and we'll see. The Browns have been terrible defending the pass. They've given up 19 touchdowns passing this year, and that's a defense that I think has only had the 3rd fewest attempts against them, which is surprising. 3rd fewest attempts against them this season in the league, and they've given up 19 touchdowns.
I guess it's because people, well, I was going to say most teams are leading so they don't need to pass, but actually the Browns have been played
negative 13 turnover differential for the Browns.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
To me, it feels like it feels a lot like the 2016 Jags.
Yep.
I don't think they have the talent, you know, specifically a guy like Jalen Ramsey in that secondary where you're like, okay, this is what we're going to build around. The way that Jacksonville did, but they have Myles Garrett. They have a little bit of a pass rush. They're pretty good at linebacker, or have been. We'll see what they look like today with their captain going out, basically. But they've been pretty good in that area, but they've had to play with so many short fields that teams don't need to pile up yards. They got to go 25 yards.
Yeah.
That's how far they got to go to score on this Browns team right now, and they're giving up that 25 yards every time. They're not getting the stops that the Jaguars defense was even able to get last year, but this was a Jaguars defense that was bad in scoring defense last year and top 10 in yards. And that's kind of what this Browns team feels like, is their offense just keeps putting them in impossible situations, and eventually they break.
And that really does sound, like you said, like last year. I think we talked about that a lot throughout the season. Tony's done the work so you can reap the benefits of his fantasy advice, and we'll go around the AFC South. That's all next on 1010XL. I don't watch national news or anything like that, so this is cracking me up that it says 8, 12, and 68 degrees. Is that 68 degrees here in Jacksonville, or is that just 68 in their studios?
No, that's us.
That's us, okay. Well, that's nice of them.
I've got a preacher on my television.
Yeah.
Mac Brunson, that's downtown.
Oh, is that Baptist downtown?
Yeah, that's First Baptist.
He needs some stronger glasses. He couldn't get much closer to that Bible. He needs like a spit guard on that thing. Oh, he is working.
Welcome in, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're here every Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m. unless it's a 4 p.m. game. Then it's 5 hours before kickoff. We have, I did this test run like a month ago on YouTube, and we have European viewers who can't listen. I guess they can't listen on the app or listen online. Mm-hmm. So they've been watching the live streams to get Jaguars coverage. Nice. And they asked to do it. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely. Even if it's just one person, I'll do it again.
Sure. Yeah, third fewest attempts against.
That's crazy.
And they've given up 19 touchdowns with the league high is 21. Oh. And that's Tennessee, who played already this week.
Did you see Don and Fuego tweet us? My fam up there is quite confident of Cleveland's first win, citing Weather, Gibson's comments, Blake Bortles, and their defense. Hashtag go Jags.
Tony, you did get a little shout out from Wiggle.
Yeah, I saw.
Happy fan base makes me happier.
Oh, it just looks cold there.
Yeah, he was giving me a hard time when we were doing the bologna this week too. He's like, "Why are y'all doing bologna? Champagne and cookies."
Yes, that's a trend that I want to get more behind.
And I was like, well,
I've never heard of the champagne.
I'm not
cookies.
doing any of it. Like, it's
Every
whatever's
Jaguars
provided
victory
for
like
me.
the past 5 years.
Like, I wanted to tell him, I was like, you bring me champagne and cookies, and I'll have some champagne and cookies. Like, they brought me a bologna sandwich, so I'm having the bologna sandwich. I would much prefer the champagne and cookies after the show.
Yeah, so Champagne and Cookies was started by Wiggleman on Twitter. He's a big Jags fan. He's from Fernandina, but lives in Orlando now, I think. Travels up here for all the games,
right, yeah.
I believe. I think he travels up here for, yeah, he does. He's a season ticket holder. But after every Jaguars victory, he makes champagne and cookies and films it and then sends it out on the timeline.
Gotcha.
So now it's become like a little cult favorite, especially this year. Because he gets to do it so often. Such a surprise.
Oh, today's Josh Lambo's 27th birthday.
It's a good day to hit a game winner.
I don't want it to be that close. Last week was enough for me. I did not follow the rules of the press box last week. When AJ got that ball and started to run it back, I didn't say anything, but I did this. Go.
I could
Get
never
down
act
there.
last in a press box.
I didn't think I could, but it's
What's
really not
funny?
that bad.
No.
Because people talk. Like,
Yeah,
it's not
people
like
talk.
you're silent. People are like,
I know, but
Holy
between
cow, I
the
can't believe
cursing
that.
and the what the fuck and
what'd you say, Matt?
Minutes ago.
Oh, okay, thanks.
refs and there's too much cursing and cheering for me.
Dempsey had me on yesterday on NFL radio when he was doing his show yesterday morning with Tim Brown. So Tim asked me, he's like, I was in a lot of locker rooms where I was putting up a bunch of numbers without a quarterback. And so he goes into his Bortles question and, can Bortles carry this team? And my first response to him was, well, they haven't even had to ask that question for a decade. So, I think fans around here are okay with it to this point. How far can Blake carry him? I think we're all going to find out. I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't.
Who is this week's sleeper? Who's got breakout potential? Who's a bust? Here's Tony Smith with your fantasy football final.
All right, the last week of buys this season. You don't have to deal with them anymore. Your team should be at full strength, minus the injuries and suspensions if you happen to be relying on Ezekiel Elliott
don't remind
as well. If your team stinks and you have Zeke, by the way, quick advice, let him go. If your team is any good and you have Zeke, you might want to hang on because he'll get back for championship week if you can find some way to stay afloat until then. Now into the positional looks this week. Quarterbacks, number 1 this week, Tom Brady. 2, Carson Wentz. 3, Russell Wilson. 4, Dak Prescott. And 5, Alex Smith. I think the Jags should have opportunities in the passing game today, but given the weather and the continued up and down nature of the Jags passing game, I'm still not going to encourage putting Blake Bortles into a lineup, despite what looks like a good matchup today against the Cleveland Browns. And I told you a couple weeks ago, I think he's worth rostering because of matchups like Cleveland coming down the stretch, but I think the weather gets in the way of it today. If you're playing options in the Browns passing game, yikes. If you're forced to do it this week against this Jaguars secondary, God bless you. Other guys that I like this week include Drew Brees. The Saints have become a running team, which we will get into in just a moment. Brees isn't putting up the same kind of numbers because the Saints don't need him to, but I expect a big game from him today against Washington. Derek Carr is a pretty good play this week against New England, though the Patriots have been better the last month or so defensively. Matt Stafford remains a solid top 10 option week to week. If you are dealing with quarterback injuries or that final wave of buys, though I don't know what quarterback would be on a bye that you're like, oh no, he's on a bye. The sneaky quarterback play this week, I think, is Jay Cutler, who has a primo matchup against Tampa Bay. Tampa doesn't stop anybody right now. Jay Cutler gets that, plus another bump that I'll get into here in just a moment with that Dolphins offense. Running backs this week.
What you did there.
Number 1, Kareem Hunt. Number 2, Mark Ingram. Number 3, Todd Gurley. Number 4, Melvin Gordon. And number 5, LaShawn McCoy. Where is Leonard Fournette? Fournette, if he plays, is going to test that ankle in pregame. It's still a top 10 play for me, but I'm a little less bullish on him after seeing the way he looked last week. Coming back from that ankle injury, we will find out in a few hours whether or not he'll be active today. If he's active, I would play him. If he's not active, and you're looking to make the decision between Chris Ivory and TJ Yeldon, I lean Yeldon, especially in a PPR, but clearly think that Ivory would be the likely recipient of any goal line work for the Jags offense in that kind of scenario. Other guys that I like this week include Alvin Kamara. Both Saints runners are borderline top 5 plays week to week and should be played in all formats. Tevin Coleman in line to get the lion's share of the work in the Falcons' backfield. Devonta Freeman not officially ruled out with a concussion, but he is doubtful for the game, so Coleman is a low-end running back 1 play for me this week. Jay Ajayi is now the only Philadelphia running back that I would put into a lineup. And in the offense he is playing in, should be a pretty good threat to score week to week. Green Bay's Jamal Williams should be a pretty good volume play this week with Aaron Jones out, Ty Montgomery out with a ribs injury. Dallas was unable to get their run game going last week, and that seemed to be less about the suspensions and more about the absence of their left tackle Tyron Smith, who is expected to be out again this week, and they are playing a much better Eagles defense. So if you're looking to get a Cowboys runner into your lineup, I would lean towards Rod Smith instead of Alfred Morris because Smith is the better pass catcher. Between the two, wide receivers, number 1, Michael Thomas, 2, Mike Evans, 3, A.J. Green, 4, Doug Baldwin, 5, DeAndre Hopkins. Marquise Lee remains a fine flex option given the volume that he has been getting in the Jaguars passing game. Again, Why are you even considering playing any Browns pass catchers against this Jaguars defense? Just don't. Other guys that I like this week include, do you know who is third in the league in receiving yards this season?
Do tell.
Minnesota's Adam Thielen.
Oh, yeah, I did know that.
Play him. Adam Thielen
He's been a fantasy killer.
He's been good for the last 2 years, basically. And alongside Stephon Diggs, these guys have become must-plays. Tyreek Hill is a top 10 play against the struggling Giants. Des Bryant will play against the Eagles and is a low-end wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2 this week. I really like both Miami options this week. And Jarvis Landry and Devontae Parker. Parker, who hasn't been great since returning from his injury, was challenged by his head coach this week with him questioning his toughness, saying he's not seeing the same kind of effort that he saw early in the season. I think he answers that challenge today against the Bucs. Sterling Shepard, who had been becoming a really, really good option week to week, they don't know if he's going to even be able to go today, so you're going to want to check that at game time for the Giants as he's dealing with an illness and not expected to go, but we'll see here in the next hour and a half or so. Temper your expectations for Robert Woods, who has emerged as the best option in the Rams' explosive offense, but this week could get the Xavier Rhodes treatment against the Minnesota Vikings. And tight end this week, number 1, Travis Kelce, 2, Rob Gronkowski, 3, Zach Ertz, 4, Evan Ingram, 5, Jimmy Graham. That's right, somebody besides Rob Gronkowski, number 1, Travis Kelce of Kansas City, as the Giants have given up a touchdown to a tight end every week this year. And this week they go up against the best tight end they've faced thus far this season. They're giving it up to scrubs week to week. Travis Kelce could eat today. The rest of my top 10, Kyle Rudolph, Jason Witten, Jared Cook, Cameron Brate, and Vernon Davis.
One of us, I won't say who, had Rashard Matthews on the bench.
Oh, ouch.
Yep, there goes 22 points on the bench. And so your Robert Woods call, I'm going to need that to be incorrect. I need him to play well this week. The good news is Big Ben was the quarterback in that league.
Well, you better hope that he doesn't get Xavier Rhodes. There aren't many guys who get off on Xavier Rhodes.
I will definitely hope so. Blythe or Matt, any fantasy questions for Tony?
Not for me.
Good
I
to
had
go?
a lot of my guys play on Thursday. I had a lot of Steelers players and a few Titans players go, so I'm sitting pretty, actually.
What are you doing without Elliott?
Oh gosh, I don't know yet. I still have Le'Veon Bell, which is weird. I don't know how I got both of those two guys in the same draft, but so I'm doing okay. But it's like a lot of Balil pals that are trying to fill the gaps with Elliott down. It kind of sucks, but what can you do? I'm trying to win a championship.
Oh yeah, I got one league. I'm so excited about the playoffs because I got Bell, Gurley, and Kamara that I get to throw out every week right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, Kamara is gonna win me leagues.
Yeah,
Well,
Kamara has been.
Last week I did sort of I missed a show last week because my best friends got married, and I was playing the groom that week, and he obviously had a lot of things going on, so he had a few players on their bye week. I didn't tell him. And I told him the next day, I was like, I really needed this win. I'm sorry. He came back and beat me by 2 points.
Oh my goodness.
Shame on me.
Yep.
Yeah, never give any help to anybody, even if it's their wedding. All right, let's get it back to the Jaguars division now.
It's time now to go around the AFC South.
Well, since you were out last week, Blythe, I had to cover the Colts. You know, the Titans are way better than the Colts. I'll give these duties back to you. Tell us about the bottom dwellers at 3 and 7.
Well, there's really nothing to tell because they're on a bye week except for their quarterback situation and what's going on with Andrew Luck. He's over in Europe right now seeking treatment for his shoulder. And I think if the Colts owner sort of has his way, then he might, or not has his way, but if he keeps commenting more on the situation, then he might turn out to run out the franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck in favor of Jacoby Brissett, which is a little strange. But Brissett is actually playing pretty good this year. But Irsay is not feeling Andrew Luck, and he thinks he's sort of faking the injury.
Well, the Zeke thing and now the Andrew Luck, do we not have doctors or gyms in America?
We don't.
Like, why are they going to Europe?
You know, for Zeke, I get it. Like, you just don't want to walk in a grocery store and have people recognize you and ask you about it, and I kind of understand. For Andrew Luck, I assume that he's seeking some alternative treatments that aren't necessarily
Maybe he doesn't
allowed
trust
in
the
the
Colts.
US.
He could very well not trust the Colts organization. And with Jim Irsay saying, throughout the entire season, even in the offseason, that Andrew Luck was going to be ready by the time that the season started. And then you have, Jim Irsay commenting that he thinks the injury is all in his head now, all in Andrew Luck's head. And so that probably doesn't sit well with a guy who took over this franchise and is single-handedly won you division titles because of his quarterback play, and you have yet to build a team around him despite having him for years and years.
And get back to me when Jim Irsay is someone that people actually trust and respect, because he's gone off the deep end.
I think definitely after the handling of Peyton Manning's situation, now Andrew Luck, I don't know that a quarterback would want to go there and play for that organization, which is a good thing for us.
Yeah, and the Colts should be picking pretty, close to the top 10. All right, Tony, what about the almost as bad 3-6 Texans?
Are we all pulling for Blaine Gabbert today with him getting the start against the rival Texans?
Sure,
are we all Gabbert fans today?
Oh, we absolutely are.
First place feels good.
Get the good game out of the way, right, just in case they get him next week.
Oh, God.
Right, like exercise some more demons potentially next week against the Arizona Cardinals. But obviously that's who the matchup is today for the Texans. Patrick Peterson, the Cardinals corner, was asked about his matchup against DeAndre Hopkins today. He said, get your popcorn ready. Will you watch the result of that matchup as a way to compare Peterson, who's been considered one of the best corners in the league for a while now, and Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at lists of the best corners in the entire NFL, those two are always in the top 5. So, yeah, you want to look at that, especially with the relationship and the history that Jalen and DeAndre Hopkins have.
I'm probably going to watch the game, but I don't really care about what DeAndre Hopkins has to say. It's a battle for last place, loser.
All right, and the Titans, we thank you.
Straight facts, you spit facts.
The only time we're happy with the Titans when the Titans get walloped by the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, losing a game 40-17. That was 23-17 at the half. So that means the Titans just crumbled in the second half. Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota threw 4 picks. The rookie wide receiver, that time I didn't say Wookie, Corey Davis took the blame for 2 of the picks. Mariota has 8 touchdowns, 10 picks on the season, and he's been sacked 17 times. So there's a little bit of a game plan for the Jags for that final game on New Year's Eve. Linebacker Brian Arakpo injured his leg, but he should be okay for the next game. This game, Thursday night, featured the new NFL Sky Cam. What did y'all think of it?
I loved it.
I loved it too. To give me a view. I said it last week when they were kind of playing around with it a little bit. Zoom it out so that I can see everything before the snap. Like that's my only complaint about it is if you're gonna run it like a Madden camera, then run it like a Madden camera where I can see everything developing like I can when I'm playing Madden. Instead of I don't need to see just the box. And if it's a run play, then zoom it in so we can get a better look at it. But keep it out so we can see everything.
When I got annoyed, like I said, Mariota threw 4 picks. Sometimes the DB gets the ball, and then you don't know how far they can go because all you can see is the few yards in front of them. You don't know if they have blockers, and so that part kind of drives me crazy, especially after getting to watch games like we saw last week in person with A.J. Boye running that ball 51 yards. You want to see where they can go.
I wish you could almost have an option where you could view both of them at the same time, both of those views, like the traditional 50-yard view and then the new Sky Cam. But I think I heard a story the next day that said that Marcus Mariota, because of the Sky Cam footage, his leadership and his vocal leadership as a leader on that team is being called into question.
Interesting.
Because he's very quiet. He's
a mild-mannered guy.
But that's to be a great quarterback, you have to be able to command and be able to speak effectively. And since he's so quiet, they're calling into question his leadership abilities long term as far as the Titans are concerned. And then you think of Mike Mularkey, they're not going to go anywhere with him still as a head coach.
I can tell you the Sky Cam makes me appreciate the speed of the NFL even more. Like the view from behind the TV view, it's like watching ice hockey on TV. Like, it doesn't do it justice. Like, the game isn't as fast on that camera. I know it technically is, but it's just not. It doesn't look the same. When they're throwing those out routes, like on TV, you're like, well, why don't you just stick it in there? And then you see the behind, like, what the quarterback's view is of that play, and it's like, how did he get it there? Like, as fast as everything is going, everything that's going on in that pocket, which that traditional view just doesn't give you really any sense of, right? I think if you've played or you've seen the behind-the-line camera, you have an idea of it, but watching an entire game from that angle, it was like, whew, like, even more, I'm like, how does anyone play quarterback at any kind of competent level ever? It just feels impossible to me when they give me that kind of look.
I think quarterbacks will love the Sky Cam if they have good games, or people like Mariota after 4 picks. You'll see exactly what he sees, and you know sometimes, like, oh, you shouldn't have thrown that football. All right, Tennessee is off until November 26th, facing the Colts in Indianapolis. So Tennessee has the Colts, then the Texans, the Cardinals, and the 49ers. Will Tennessee go 4-0 in that stretch?
Not a chance.
No?
I don't think so. They've been on the
That's
edge
good.
for a month. I think they lose at least one of those games, maybe 2. Like, it just, they needed overtime to beat Cleveland. They've had to come from behind the last couple of weeks. Like, you could feel this coming against Pittsburgh, where they finally went up against one of the big boys in the conference and
In a short week.
got beat around. I mean, but it didn't feel like they were ever going to win that game. Like, it never felt like Tennessee was on the same level as the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game. They finally kind of got into it because they got a 75-yard touchdown on a play, which, look, we've talked about those already this season with the Jags, those kind of fluky plays. Like, that's how you let a team that's not as good as you stay in a game. Pittsburgh did it for a half. And then it was like, guys, we're better than this team. And I think that's what we saw on Thursday night. That doesn't mean that they're not capable of beating those other 4 teams that are coming up here, but they're also capable of losing any of those games. They're just not a very consistent football team right now.
They got a lot of talent on that roster, lack of leadership. That's where they're faulty. Mike Mularkey is not the answer at head coach for them, and until they make that change, I don't know that they're going to see the promised land.
Tony will take you inside the Jaguars locker room, and we will tell you how the Jaguars keep the Cleveland Browns winless. That's all next on 1010XL.
Mike Mularkey is a fraud of a head coach.
Do you
Fraud.
have the sound stuff ready, Tony?
Yeah, I already sent it.
Okay, sweet. Last week I must have done a bad job of setting that up.
Oh, I don't even remember what happened last week.
I said something, and then I was like, I expect we're going to hear from some defensive players, right? And you're like, yep. And then we didn't. And then there was no talking, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh shoot, maybe he doesn't have the clips ready. And then I was like, oh gosh.
Oh no, I must have thought there was like some
So
kind of
yeah,
production
no, you're
or
good.
something.
Like I said, I must have done a bad job. So this time it will be far more.
Tailgate party go up in smoke? Call me, Jen, at Sticky Fingers Brew House, where I'll be serving up a legendary catering.
I don't understand how I'm freezing in this room, no matter the temperature, Monday through Friday. And on Sundays, maybe it's because I'm drinking coffee. Oh, that's the difference. Because I normally have cold drinks. I solved it. Never mind. Go back to your daily activities.
Funny how suddenly there's so many roofers out there. If a storm damaged your roof, make sure you hire a licensed and respected roofing contractor like Carlson Enterprises. Call 855-91-ROOFING. 855-91-ROOFING. Republic Services is now hiring CDL drivers in Duval and St. Johns counties. Join the team of over 33,000 employees across the U.S. with Republic Services. New drivers receive a $1,500 sign-on bonus and competitive benefits. Over 50% of managers in Northeast Florida started their careers as drivers. You can build your career too. Join the Republic Services team and make a positive impact on your community and environment. For more information and to apply,
I just feel like Jeff is yelling at me.
republicservices.com.
Recycle.
But not what it does to our houses. Advanced window tinting can show you how to reduce heat and sun exposure in your home.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Raise and prevent your temperature close and armor. Call 545-8115 and see how advanced window tinting 3M quality can save you money and protect your family's health. Advanced window tinting 545-8115. For high-tech home security systems, talk to the pros at Alpha Dog Security this holiday season. Protect your stuff with cameras and home automation systems. Hi, Flying Jacko here. I highly recommend Alpha Dog Security.
I guess I should make sure he has made it to Cleveland.
Catch David Garrard on 1010XL, 92.5 FM.
Blue here for Keystone Automotive Paint. They're a distributor for Axo Nobel Siggins right here in Jacksonville. Congratulations to Mark and Donna Osteen, local business owners of Osteen's Auto Body.
Oh, there's the picture of it.
Oh my God.
Saw that.
I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see it? Let's do this.
So my girlfriend has
Meat
a 7-year-old
panties.
son,
Mm-hmm.
and yesterday they're watching football, and her boyfriend Casey says they should let me announce the
Matt?
games, right? You know, everybody
Meat
said that at some
panties.
point, and the 7-year-old
Bacon,
replies,
placing.
"You'd be good at
Talk
it, but
together.
Lauren is the best." I was like, yes, I love it.
I used to do it for friends' Madden games.
Oh yeah,
I would do full play-by-play.
Yes.
While my friends played Madden.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to do play-by-play in the future?
I've done a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I did Bartram Lincoln on Friday night this week, and I'm on the Bulls.
Oh, you did do that one? I
broadcast.
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and I'm on the Bulls broadcast. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I'd rather
Just for
do-
football or
I'd-
for baseball too?
I'd
or-
rather do baseball
Yeah.
personally, but
Because baseball's a little slower, or
because
you
baseball is
just
my
love
favorite
baseball?
sport,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's story time. Baseball is story time.
Right. That's why I say slower, not necessarily game slower, but
Yeah.
more time to talk.
I did that. I did a soccer game with Manzi a few weeks ago too.
Oh, how was that?
That was a lot of fun.
He's
actually.
one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jay, I think Jay's really lucky to have him.
That was fun. All my useless soccer knowledge I finally got to put to work. In this
I
market,
still
having a bunch
laugh
of
at
soccer knowledge,
soccer.
it's like, why do I even do this?
I still laugh at when I told y'all the most dangerous lead in soccer is 2-0.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dempsey got a real kick out of that.
He did. Oh, it was so much fun.
Don't have to worry about that this year.
Nope.
Bunch of losers.
Alright, 15 seconds.
All right, thanks.
I got a little bit mad right now just thinking about that again.
I miss the music. I'm so glad we get music now.
This is the 10XL Kickoff Show, fueled by Sawyer Gas, presented by Coastal Equipment on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
A little classic rock for you this morning, as the Jaguars are up in Cleveland, and Cleveland is known as the Mistake by the Lake, but also has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the guys were lucky enough to get there yesterday and see some of the really cool exhibits. All right, the Jaguars will own at least a share of the division lead through Week 11 for the first time since 1999, back when it was the AFC Central. Tony, after such a wild win over the Chargers, what are some quotes that stood out to you this week?
Yeah, let's take a look back at the week. We'll go all the way back to last Sunday to get things started, just because, look, if he's going to give us a quote, we're going to use it because
Heck yeah.
everyone loves to hear from Jalen Ramsey. And last week in the locker room, Jalen Ramsey was asked about Phillip Rivers and being annoyed by all of the losing to the Chargers talk.
Yeah, for sure. He is a Hall of Fame player, good player. He's had success against the Jaguars organization in his past, but that's truly what it is, his past. He hasn't played this team this year, and we kind of knew that. We were kind of honestly getting annoyed that Doug kept talking about it or kept reminding us about it, just because we knew we're a different team than what he's been playing. We knew
10 seconds.
what we had the best secondary, we had the best defense
Five.
in the NFL, period. So we were kind of getting tired of it, of hearing it. We just had to go out there and show what we could do.
King Ramsey.
Jalen is the guy, the child who calls his parents by their first names. My parents are not mom and dad anymore. They'd be Mike and Seal.
Right.
Jalen said we were annoyed that Doug kept reminding us of it all week. Not Coach, Doug.
There's
Not
a
Coach.
great Ringer article on Jalen Ramsey. If you haven't had a chance to go read it, it's fantastic.
About trash talking.
Well, trash talking, him growing up, the way he grew up, and what made him into the sort of the trash talker and the elite athlete that he is today. It's a great article.
No, it's good stuff. If you haven't read it yet and you're a Jags fan, you absolutely should. Blake Bortles this week, during his weekly visit with the media, was asked about what advice he would give to Browns quarterback Deshaun Kaiser.
Try to throw it to your team as much as possible. I mean, it's tough. You know, I've done it for a couple of years. You know, and I think any quarterback, you know, will tell you that's the biggest thing. I think, you know, you you watch guys every week that have been playing in the NFL for a long time and still kind of make bad decisions and bad throws. So it's something that I think it's a constant battle. The great ones are the ones that do it as little as possible, and that's why they're so great. So I think everybody is trying to eliminate the turnovers and kind of get rid of that.
All right, let's get one serious quote in here. One serious quote
That
from
was
this week.
serious.
I don't think so.
He's joking, but he's serious about not throwing the ball to the other team.
Self-depreciation is
I
a
feel
good
for
thing.
you guys. I feel for you, buddy. If you think it's bad now, try doing it for 3 years. See how you feel in 3 years if they let you stick around. Doug Marrone this week on his show on Thursday night was actually asked about trying to get this third quarter started. They try to split the season into 4 different quarters. So game 1 of the third quarter was last week. They get the win against the Chargers. Doug Marrone was asked about the good start to the third quarter and the goal of winning each one of those subsections of the season.
At least that's how I try to keep the players focused. Here we are in the third quarter, and we started the third quarter well, obviously with the win. And, the one thing that we haven't done well in the first 2 quarters is win the second game. We've lost the second game in the first and the second quarter. So, and that's been something that I brought to the team and try to just keep them focused on that and not on all the other stuff that's on the outside.
We'll see how effectively he does that. As he said, they've lost the second game of each of the previous 2 quarters. I don't think that means anything coming into today's game. And finally, one more completely silly thing before we get done going back through the week. Telvin Smith joined Good Morning Football, I think, on Friday morning. It may have been Thursday, but I think it was Friday morning.
I think it was Friday.
But it was with Nate Burleson. And Nate had seen on his Instagram that Telvin is a bit of a rap fan, so Nate asked Telvin to give him a few bars on Good Morning Football.
You had that freestyle on the IG. I'm not going to say you got to rap or spit a couple bars, but if you got something, I got something. You know what I'm saying? Just a couple lines if you want to do it.
Okay. Just a couple lines?
Just a couple lines.
It's Freestyle Friday.
It's Freestyle Friday.
Let's do something. You got your hat. Let's do something. You want me to go first or you going to go first?
You go ahead and go first. I'll cap it off.
See, I'm a paid man. That's like a maid man.
Hey.
Matter of fact, I might even
10.
Made man. Hey. If you want to talk, then let's do it, man.
5.
Sitting in Duval, this here is Saxon land. Let's do it, man.
There's Telvin.
Tremendous.
I don't know if you saw it, but Leonard Fournette yesterday on social media was giving him a hard time. And he said it was pretty weak, that effort there from Telvin Smith.
What? It was first of all, it was the first thing in the morning. Second of all, he didn't really have time to prepare or really think about it. Now, granted, you're not supposed to prepare in freestyle. I get all that, but I thought it was pretty good. No?
I don't know, man. These guys in the locker room, this may be something that happens in that locker room, and there may be some running battle in the locker room that we're unaware of.
Also, Telvin, if you don't have a maid yet, what are you doing?
Well, Telvin and a few of the other guys over the years, they've had Freestyle Fridays where they put it up on their Instagram or their Twitter accounts, and they would have like regular hangouts where they would do this like every Friday.
Someone has to win, right? Like if you're doing that kind of stuff, there is a winner of Freestyle Friday, and I think that Leonard just wants Telvin to know that you did not win. I don't care if just because it was on TV. That's not like some trump card that you got to do it with Nate Burleson and Good Morning Football.
I didn't think Burleson's was very good, by the way. I thought Smith's was much better than his.
Well, Jalen also, or not Jalen, but Leonard Fournette was commenting on Jalen's picture because he had, I guess, a photo of like a Smoothie King advertisement or something, and Leonard Fournette was making fun of him, calling him, was it Don King with a fro?
Oh yeah, he was giving him a hard time about the hair. Yeah.
And then Jalen came back and said, I don't want to mess with your bald behind. Something along those lines that I can say for radio.
There we go. How did the Jaguars beat the Browns and win a 4th straight game?
Now the keys to the game on 1010XL. Brought to you by Instant Keys. Fast, professional, honest locksmith service.
All right, I'll kick us off, and I'm going to go with play conservatively on offense. There's a couple reasons for that. Left guard Patrick Omameh with a quad injury and right tackle Jeremy Parnell with a knee injury were downgraded to out yesterday and did not make the trip to Cleveland. So this is a game where, in my opinion, you trust the defense and you don't put Blake Bortles in a position to make any bad throws.
Me or you, Blythe?
I guess that's definitely something that you want to do every single week. But this week in particular, with the weather affecting the game, it's going to affect the passing game, it's going to affect the kicking game, and it's something that you do have to play conservatively, but rushing the ball, it's going to be a tough time today. They're going to have to establish that run game early and often because Cleveland has a third-ranked rush defense.
No, they do. They've been pretty good against the run. They have not been good at all against the pass, so we'll see. Look, I think it's been a key all year. This team, when they've blown people out, it's because they're aggressive early. To me, that's what they have to be, because I think against Cleveland, a touchdown lead is a big lead, right? And I think if you can get that early, then I think you play conservative. But to me, I think you come out, you are aggressive early. That should be the way that you plan this game. I think it's get the ball in D.D. Westbrook's hands at least once on that first drive, let his athleticism take over, and then see where you are. We don't know if Leonard Fournette's going to be able to go in this game today. This doesn't feel like a game that if you turn the ball over once, it's going to kill you, right? Cleveland isn't good enough for one turnover to be the reason that you lose this football game. They're good enough that if you turn it over a couple times, and look, I'm reacting with fans right now on social media. They're like, I'm really nervous about this game. I get it. From a fan perspective, I get it. They ought to beat the Cleveland Browns. There is no excuse. None. Zero. No wiggle room. None. They cannot lose to the Cleveland Browns. We're not doing this Jets thing again. They're not good enough. You cannot lose to the Cleveland Browns and consider yourself a playoff team. Now, they'll still likely end up in the playoffs because the division stinks, and they're in a position where they got a 2-game lead. But this talk about, well, this team can go somewhere in the playoffs, no. They lose to the Browns, I'm done talking about it, right? Like, I'm done talking about a deep run for this team in the playoffs. If they can't find some way to go on the road and beat the Browns, and y'all want to talk about them going on the road and beating the Steelers and Patriots in the playoffs, give me a break. Go take care of business today. It's bottom line today.
And it's a game that they should win. Last week we saw them battle back, and this wasn't something that we've seen all season, but we saw this team battle back through adversity and get the win in overtime against the Chargers. That was something we haven't seen all season. Today is something that we should beat a team that we absolutely are favored by and that we absolutely should beat. If we lose today, it's completely inexcusable.
My second key score on defense, basically, Tony, what you were talking about, getting the lead early. Between the weather and the injuries, if the defense can get points on the board, you can almost sit back and relax, one would think. And my final key to the game, don't let running back Duke Brown hurt you the way that Austin Eckler did last week. The Browns gained over 200 yards on the ground against the Lions a week ago. So they can run the football with this Isaiah Crowell and with Duke Johnson. Don't let them in any way, shape, or form. By the way, happy birthday to Josh Lambo.
You called him Duke Brown. I was like, who am I missing?
Oh, Duke Johnson. Why did I write Duke Brown?
I don't know. You said Duke Johnson.
Convenient.
The second time you said Duke Johnson.
Yeah, because the Browns. That's why. I was thinking Browns, and I was also thinking pronounce Austin Eckler's name right, because for some reason last week I could not get Eckler off my tongue. So yeah, Duke Johnson. Don't let Duke Johnson from the Browns hurt you. All right, Tony, how banged up are these two teams?
Yeah, let's take a look at the injury report.
The personal injury attorneys of Farah and Farah present this injury update. Farah and Farah, protecting you and your family since 1979.
All right, for the Cleveland Browns, we already know that they're going to be without their left tackle, Joe Thomas, who's out for the season. They put their star linebacker, Jamie Collins, on IR this week, so they'll be without him today as well. Other guys on the injury report this week, center Joseph Treader, with a shoulder injury, though he's dealing with a bunch of different injuries. Listed as questionable, but was able to participate in the walkthrough on Friday, so that's a good sign for him and his availability. Sean Coleman with a concussion, limited on Friday, officially listed as questionable. It sounds like he's on the right side of questionable for that Browns offensive line as well. And Jamar Taylor, the cornerback, questionable with an ankle injury. On the Jaguars side of things, we already know Aurelius Ben, he's been put on IR. Alan Hearns is out as he's dealing with that ankle injury. Patrick Amame, Jeremy Parnell, both downgraded to out yesterday, so we'll know what a bunch of the inactives are going to be for this team before we even get into it. But Leonard Fournette, officially listed as questionable. He participated in practice on Wednesday and Thursday. On Friday, he did not participate in the walkthrough, which is usually a bad sign, but they're going to test that ankle before the game today before they make a decision on whether or not he's going to be active for the Jaguars in that backfield. And Blair Brown, the linebacker, dealing with a hamstring injury. Again, another special teams impact there potentially for the Jags. Officially listed as questionable, unable to participate in the walkthrough on Friday either. So we'll see, where he is in pregame as well. But special teams, they're shaking up a lot between special teams and offensive line today against the Browns.
They certainly are, and this is a game where with that weather, you'd like to be able to just say, we're just going to run the football and we're not even going to worry about doing a whole lot with the passing game, but without two of those linemen, without Leonard Fournette potentially, or at least without a healthy Leonard Fournette, it certainly does make you nervous. Blythe, before we go up to Cleveland, can you tell fans a little bit about the gentleman that we're going to speak with and some interesting products that he makes?
Yes, so he's a butcher, Danny Catullo from Catullo Prime Meats, and he is a butcher. He's a butcher shop owner up in Cleveland, and he's been almost what I've been described to as an insanely or optimistic Browns fans. And he talks about how there's Super Bowl chances every single year, but one of the items that I saw on his Twitter feed, the things that he cooks up with his butcher shop, is what's called meat panties. And what he basically did is he took...
That's the official name?
I'm just calling them that because that's exactly what they are. So he took bacon strips and made them as the strap for the underwear and used the flank steak as the front and the back cover and sewed them together with the sort of the butcher's string. So it's very creative.
I just want to make sure I got this right. We're about to go up to Cleveland to talk to a guy who makes panties out of meat and thinks that the Browns have a chance to win the Super Bowl. So we're going to go talk to a crazy person in a couple minutes.
A crazy, optimistic person.
Okay.
And that's what I'm really interested to talk to him, maybe a little bit less about the meat panties, but a lot more about how he can stay so optimistic when it seems like the Browns are going nowhere and the front office can't make the correct picks, especially at quarterback.
Well, it's funny because I asked my buddy who runs, he's a Cleveland sports fanatic, and I was like, you want to come on Sunday and talk about the Browns? He's like, no, I haven't watched maybe 2 minutes of this team all season. He's just had it. He thinks that you should, take the entire team and pack them up into a car and just drive them straight into the lake. That's how done he is with the Browns. He says, but I have the perfect person for you because Danny is apparently a huge Browns fan, and he's a small business owner who's sort of blossomed into a bigger profile as far as his business is concerned, shipping perishable meats and things like that. So it's sort of fascinating. So I'm looking forward to talking with him.
Absolutely. That is next. We will head up to Cleveland, chilly Cleveland, and chat with diehard Browns fan Danny Catullo to learn more about the Browns and, I suppose, the meatless panties. That's all next. Stay tuned to 1010XL.
Jags beat writer Hayes Carlisle takes you behind enemy lines.
That's probably a better way to do that, is to talk a little bit about the person before we have them on, especially in the case when there's more to them, instead of just bringing them on and, having a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, because this one's definitely, this is probably one of the better ones since like John McClane. I think John McClane's been my favorite so far, but I sort of fangirl over him.
Our guy last week gets up at 4 a.m. on game days, 4 a.m. Pacific time. So he was easily up. He had already published a story when we had him on at 6 a.m. his time, 9 a.m. obviously our time. Yeah.
I guess you have to be an early riser if you live out on the West Coast.
Well, he was doing both teams. He does the Chargers and Raiders.
Yeah.
Which?
Why not the Rams?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like something that someone said, hey, do you want to cover these teams? Or he said, I'm going to cover the Chargers and Raiders. Like, I don't know.
As a result, we've added some good drivers to our team.
Well, he's only got like another year having to cover the Raiders. I doubt he's going to do it when they go to Vegas.
Especially in Clay County, St. Johns County, and yes.
I wouldn't want to cover the Chargers at all. I wanted the other guy, is he not covering the team anymore? The Bolts from the Blue guy? Who even knows if that blog still exists?
He got back to me, Richard Wade. He got back to me. He's like, that's too early for me, but I may have somebody else that can join you. So I got back to him. This is before I'd heard from the other guy. And so I got back to him and I was like, yeah, that'd be great, thanks. And then I never heard back from him. So luckily, the other guy was like, sorry, I never checked my Twitter messages. And I was like, well, that's no problem, but you don't have an email address listed, so I can't exactly contact you any other way.
It's like Thor and Doctor Strange.
I was trying to find John McClane's email and I couldn't find it for the life of me. And then I reached out to the Houston Chronicle, just their sports department. I said, I'm trying to reach out to find John McClane's email, and they forward it to him. And then John McClane responds back. He's like, Blythe, my email address has been at the bottom of everything I've written for 20 years. I was like, I swear I thought I looked. I'm already getting yelled at. I feel honored.
That's usually how I start, is looking at something they've written.
Well, I did. I know I looked at the website and I was like, God, I wish they had like a comment form or something.
My friend Greg is listening and he said, can I get an over-under on how many times I'm going to hear the phrase meat panties in the next segment?
at least one more time.
I'm going to go with 3.
At least
I'm
one
going to set it
more.
at 3.
And I hope he's got a better official name for it.
Me too.
Well, he didn't call it meat panties, but I made it up. He said, I think his tweet was something along the lines of, when Victoria's Secret orders a package, you address it accordingly or something. So that might have just been like a bonus item into a box that he was already sending. A box of another box.
Have you seen Thor yet?
No. And I haven't seen Justice League either.
I don't know when I'm going to see Justice League. I'm honestly not excited about it at all.
My brother saw it on Friday. He said it was alright.
Like, I kind of hated Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those.
Batman vs. Superman was insulting.
I did take the Die Hard movie out, and it's going to get watched this week.
All right.
This week.
Has it been a year?
Yeah, it's been a year. I need it back for my Christmas party.
I was gonna say,
I need
you
it back for the
probably
Christmas
do need it
party.
for
I always have it
Christmas.
in the background.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it this weekend. It's Thanksgiving week. It's plenty of time to watch it.
Yeah, you got all of them. Like a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I could kind of go for some Die Hard with a Vengeance right now. I was like, oh yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Is he at a tailgate? Is he like outside at a tailgate? Okay, thank you.
It's probably working. That's what I was going to ask him. Does he like to work?
Full house, royal flush, and a pair of cool shades. The best bet poker show on 1010XL.
I've heard some Browns people go out at like 4 a.m. to start tailgating for their meat. What? So that's what I was curious.
Have you done your homework? Yep. Cleaned your room? Yep. Walked the dog? Yep. Made up your
Okay,
bed? Yep.
sweet.
Taken out the garbage, brushed your teeth, put your laundry away. Yep.
Thank you.
Watched a couple of those videos. Like, he's like the 3rd generation butcher shop owner of that particular shop. His grandfather owned it, then his father, and now he does.
That's awesome.
And I think he won like a American Express Small Business Award or something, to where he does a lot of promo work now with FedEx and with American Express. And because he wanted to start shipping his meat further out than just, next day shipping, which is super expensive,
Sure.
he partnered with FedEx to make specialty boxes in order to ship out all across the states. So he can two-day ship anywhere in the country. But if you wanted something like in time for Christmas, then you could order it now and pay standard shipping, and he'd have it to you by the 23rd of December.
The flagship station of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach. Game day is underway. The 1010XL Kickoff Show, fueled by Sawyer Gas, presented by Coastal Equipment on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
A little Bruce Springsteen for you, as he is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is up in Cleveland, where we're about to head next. Blythe, real quick, for fans up in Cleveland, what's the weather like today?
Oh my gosh, 38 degrees, very windy with gusts up to 30 miles an hour and snow flurries. So these Florida boys are going to be in for it.
They sure are. All right, let's now head outside the 904.
Wonder what the other guys are doing at their tailgate? Let's go outside the 904 with Blythe.
Prior to the season, the Jaguars and the Browns were often compared as the franchises who can find more ways to lose games than they can to win them. And despite a historically 500 record in head-to-head matchups, it seems one side has now turned that corner and currently sits in first place. Meanwhile, the other side and the Cleveland Browns are still looking for that first win. On this week's Outside the 904, we take you to Youngstown, Ohio to chat with Danny Catullo of Catullo Meats, who calls himself an eternal optimist when it comes to the Browns and their Super Bowl chances. Now, Danny, as a butcher shop owner, what does game day look like for you? Do you tailgate for the game? Do you work for the game, or a little of both?
A little bit of both, actually. I get to enjoy the beginning part of the year before the holidays come, and being a butcher shop owner, let's just say we get to have tasty tailgate treats.
Now, speaking of tasty tailgate treats, now from the meat to the drink, what are the must-haves for your ideal tailgate menu?
Well, it gets a little bit colder in Cleveland than it does in Jacksonville, so we have to make sure that we're warmed up as we are getting ready to tailgate. So I like to bring some spicy beef jerky to start it off in the morning, and usually the beauty spots open at 6 a.m., so we got to get some bacon on the grill. And then, of course, doing some stuffed flank steak, some turducken rolls, and all the fun goodies.
Now, speaking of flank steak, we sort of teased this before we brought you on, but I was going through your Twitter feed and noticed that you have what looks like meat panties. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can. So one of our largest customers is also the marketing director for Victoria's Secret, and he likes to place online orders. And so we decided, inspired by Lady Gaga, to send him our own pair of meat undies.
Looking at that picture, I could not. I didn't know what it was for, but now that you sort of explained it, is that sort of your craziest creation, or do you have other creations that you've made or that are sort of a little more wild?
Yeah, you know what? Our good friend Lena Berry loves Marshawn Lynch.
Nice.
So she kept on talking about him and his Skittles obsession. So we decided to make a Skittles sausage for Lena, and that was probably our craziest. And it tasted like fruity pebbles, like you're having
Oh God.
while you were eating some breakfast sausage.
So
It's a little extreme. I gotta tell you, it's a little extreme, but when you made the meat panties, was it like required that someone wear them? Like, if we're gonna make these, they have to be worn at least once, or was it just like a novelty thing, do whatever you want?
Well, yeah, I mean, we sent it over to him, so we have no clue what he did before he put it on the grill. So we're hoping he didn't wear them before.
let's hope so.
With like a huge thumbs up, like, I don't know, he gave us the look like you guys are kind of like idiots, but we love you.
Well, there you have it. And his name for it is Meat Undies, not Meat Panties.
I was wondering if there was an official name.
Yeah, I think undies is more like, it's non-gender specific.
So when it comes to game day, to tailgating for a Browns game, I mean, obviously everybody knows, most NFL fans know of, the history with the Browns and sort of winless for a while. What does game day and tailgating look like for you guys? And is it, sort of a sea of sadness, or is it, we're just here to have fun and go watch maybe a win today?
Yeah, so imagine knowing that you're going to lose while you are up at 6 a.m. Yet you believe still, like the road to 7 and 9, it starts today. Like, we're going to win out. And then next year we're going to win the Super Bowl. And like knowing that every morning at 6 a.m. before game day, it takes a lot of courage. So I applaud Browns fans as they get ready to go to the game today.
Well, lay out the map for me. Like, I get it. The road to 7 and 9 somewhere in your head begins today. So lay out the short-term map. How do they get to 1 and 9 against the Jags?
Okay, yeah, so we have to win today to start this, right? So I think today what really happens is maybe we try to score a touchdown in the first quarter.
It's a good start.
If we start scoring in the first quarter, maybe we'll get excited and start playing good defense at the end of the first half and stop letting teams score with like 10 seconds or less to get the momentum going into halftime. So now we have momentum at halftime, and now the players are excited. Then we get to the second half, and the fans are starting to feel it. They're starting to feel the train start rolling, and all of a sudden it's like 1980s again, and maybe Bernie Kosar walks down and starts playing quarterback.
And there's your road to 1 and 9.
Yeah, and while that's going on, I mean, what are your
perfect
thoughts?
sense.
What are your thoughts on quarterback sneak at the end of the first half today?
I mean, come on. It's like, hey, you're killing me here.
Oh.
This is not fun. You know you have no timeout. I mean, like anybody, like my 9-year-old son who plays Madden knows there's no timeout and says, Daddy, why doesn't it just throw the ball away?
Oh, no.
I just don't understand. Why can every NFL team, like once every 2 decades, find a quarterback, and yet the Browns haven't been able to find one since 1993?
Well, my next question is, it's sort of the go-to phrase for, and especially with Jacksonville, we've had more of a, until this season, we've had a decade of losing, and the go-to phrase for most fans was, well, at least we're not the Browns. What do Browns fans say to sort of make yourself feel better about the situation?
Well, see, like, we know that the NFL has been cheating against us for a long time. And, I mean, for example, and I will talk about
no.
years ago, okay? And the Browns run this play where they throw the ball to Quincy Morgan and they're putting the game away. I mean, they're actually passing the ball with the lead to put away the game there. So Tim Couch, who is the next greatest Browns quarterback since Bernie Kosar, decides to throw the ball to Quincy Morgan, who may or may not have juggled the ball. Now, smart Tim Couch runs up to the line and runs another play. If it's Peyton Manning, if it's Tom Brady, people are like applauding. How genius of a play for Tim Couch. But the NFL, for the first time ever, says even though the Browns ran another play, we have to go look at that catch that Quincy Morgan made. I mean, what is that? And then they wonder why the bottle.
Meanwhile, what you couldn't see is Tony was maybe not mocking, but coming right along with you and was about to throw a water bottle at me. Danny Catula, owner of Catula Meats in Youngstown, diehard, obviously, Browns fan joining us now. Danny, what's the coldest game that you've been to?
Actually, the Jacksonville Jaguars game when I don't know how we beat you. You guys are the second worst team in the NFL. Me and Josh
We were.
He's like okay. Josh he's a kick returner. We are starting a kick returner at quarterback and we beat you.
Oh my gosh.
Eric Mangini's job. I don't know if you remember this. 17. Thank you guys for losing to us. So we had another year of Eric Mangini. Really appreciate it.
We did it for the league.
Josh Cripps is playing quarterback, and that game was so cold that my beer was freezing every time I took a sip. And so I had to blow warm air into my beer so that I could be able to take another sip.
That's awful. That sounds like my nightmare.
It was awful. It was the last Browns game that my wife ever attended with me. But I have to say, that was my fourth Browns win at the stadium.
Aw.
I'm 4-32.
Wow.
Can you imagine 32 losses?
Yes,
we
yes,
can.
we can.
Well,
Therapy. I didn't realize it was therapy yet.
yes, it's definitely, you have a lot of strength to have that much positivity because you should have heard us before the season ever started. There was a sea of negativity. But I'm a little curious. It's sort of game days this week with Thanksgiving coming up and taking turkey out of the equation. What's the number one seller for you for game days compared to Thanksgiving?
For game days compared to, during around this time of the year for the holidays?
Yes.
Or for like the beginning part?
Sort of the beginning part. I guess with Thanksgiving, turkey is like sort of the go-to meat. What is your number one seller outside of turkey on Thanksgiving? Is it like a turducken, or are people using that for game days?
Yeah, you know what? I think the turduckens are definitely a big specialty around here. Youngstown and like the Rust Belt in general are filled with a bunch of older European influence. So a lot of us are like first, second, third generation Europeans. So we do a bunch of different sausages. So like bratwurst, kielbasa, smoked sausages, and those are like the best things to put on a grill. It warms you up. You put a little bit of Cleveland mustard on top of that, some onions, and really gets you going for the game.
Now, look, I know we've been talking exclusively Browns here, but at least I hope for your sake that you're just allowing yourself to enjoy the LeBron ride as long as it's going to last up there. I hope you are a Cavs fan because it's been fun at least for the last couple of years, right?
I have to tell you, Father's Day, the Cavs won it all. And so, like, us idiots, because we still believe every year that, maybe one of our teams will win one, we all go up there after Father's Day. We take my dad up, and my dad's like, we just drag him to go up there. He's like, they're going to lose. They're going to make me miserable again. It's been since 1964. So we bring my dad up there, and my whole entire family's watching this game. And it's over. Kyrie hits the big shot, and everyone's going insane in Flannery's, and my dad just starts crying. I mean, just bawling tears. And we go out into the streets, and I'm telling everybody, every ethnicity, I mean, like young, old, grandparents, whatever, we're just outside hugging and talking, and like all the older fans were talking about the old days with Jim Brown and how long it's been, and it really was, for as long as it took us to win one, it really was worth it.
And Danny, before we let you go, give us a little prediction for this Jaguars-Browns matchup today.
Okay. Real prediction?
Yes, real prediction.
Real prediction.
Time to get down to real business.
Okay, so I think that, I'm going to give you the Browns are going to win, okay? The Browns are going to win 24-17.
Well,
it's a bold prediction. And one last thing, Tayshaun Gibson's comments earlier in the week, talking about hanging 40 on a former Browns player. Does that resonate at all with the Cleveland fans? Is that sort of fuel to your fire?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, you mess with the Browns, you're messing with our entire city and every single suburb that's at least 2 hours away. Don't bring that hate to us, Gibson. This guy acts like he went to the Patriots. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh.
Okay? Listen. All right, buddy. I can't wait. I can't wait for us to throw to Kenny Britt, maybe like Corey Coleman in his hands up. We're going to throw to some wide receiver, okay? And he is just going to tear him up. Might be Ricardo Lewis off the practice squad. I don't even know. But he's gonna get a world of hurt from the dynamic Browns offense.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time today, Danny, and your eternal optimism. Obviously, we hope one way or the other that the Jaguars pull out the win, and I'm sure you're hoping the same for the Browns. So thanks too much to you, Danny Catullo, Butcher Shop, owner of Catullo Meats and CEO of Perishable Shipping Solutions, for joining us today to see the different meats his shop offers up and ships right to your doorstep. Be sure to check him out at CatulloPrimeMeats.com and give him a follow on Twitter at Catullo Meats. Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny. Stay warm. Thanks, same to you. I hope he sometime comes down to Jacksonville and tastes how Floridians cook up their meat, whether it be pulled pork or ribs. I think it's so much fun to go around and travel. I know he's inspired by some of the chefs that you watch on TV, so I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think he'd be a blast to
Definitely.
So you're always welcome down here, Danny. We will go behind enemy lines with Jaguars beat reporter Hayes Carline and hear his one-on-one with Jaguars safety Barry Church. That's next on 1010XL.
Oh, that was awesome.
It's too bad he did Tayshaun last week because Tayshaun would have been perfect for this week. But it's fine.
Oh, that was cool. I gotta place an order on his website though. Hope you guys could hear that okay. It's a little bit of a jerry-rigged setup. I have to take these headphones and turn the volume up and then put it on the speaker next to my phone so y'all can hear it. It's as loud as the volume goes. But I did change my headphones, so now you should be able to hear better. Big ass headphones.
So next time you're hungry and on the go, stop in and gauge for a Santa Fe turkey wrap from Handy Foods.
If you want to drive a luxury import vehicle but don't want to pay that new sticker price, you need to go to Tony's Auto Sales of Jacksonville. Tony's has new inventory every week and they always service what they sell. In-house financing is available for everyone. Browse their inventory at Tony'sAutosalesofJacksonville.com or stop by the new location. 1/4 mile west of Southside.
And for those of you who are watching and you didn't see the meat panties, I'm going to put them up on the screen now.
Luxury cars, low prices.
That is the meat panties. So you can see the bacon that is the straps, or the meat undies. I guess I should say meat undies.
Meat undies.
It's politically correct, whatever, meat panties. And then they have the flank steak on the front and the back. Victoria's Secret is one of his customers, so that's what he sends them when they place an order, which is pretty cool. And he did a Lana Berry name drop too. She's awesome. I'm sure you know about her. Baseball chick, super baseball chick.
I do.
Unless you're in Missouri or Illinois, I'm not licensed in your state, but that's okay. Our attorneys in your state are. Contact the domestic litigation.
There we go.
To schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Jacksonville area attorneys. Appointment men can count on. Online at CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com. Offices in downtown Jacksonville and by appointment only in Deerwood Park and Pine River Beach. Cordell, Jacksonville, Florida. Lauren Atkins, Florida resident partner. Announcers are not licensed attorneys.
When Jadon Mickens returned a punt for a touchdown in Week 9, Dream Finders Homes awarded $100,000
Diamond. I love his accent.
Frank, that's a good question.
Frank.
That I wrote for you to ask.
Perfect polish, perfect symmetry, in perfect proportions, and are backed up with an American
I think he sounds a lot like Rick Catlett. I think they have very similar accents. Yeah, I don't know where
Are they both from
Bromberg is from. Are they what? Sorry.
Are they both from Jacksonville?
Catlett's from Georgia, so I don't know where Bromberg's from. But if ever Bromberg has like laryngitis, he can just get Catlett to slide on in. Frank, that's a good question. Is it gonna rain on Thanksgiving? I don't want it to.
Compare Alpha Dog Security first before you make a long-term mistake. Online at alphadogsecurity.com.
This is the bank. By now you've heard my commercial for advanced CDL drivers. As a result, we've added some good drivers to our team. However, we still have some positions to fill. We're looking for CDL drivers in Northeast Florida, especially in Clay County, St. Johns County, and yes, Duval.
Hayes is on. We got just over 30 seconds.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Head to our website, advanceddisposal.com/careers. Get signed up today. That's advanceddisposal.com/careers.
Equal opportunity employer.
Should you have your carpets clean to impress
Oh my gosh, all this
Why
coffee.
To impress your guests or just to impress your spouse? Have Zerorez clean your carpets now. 287-5727. Zerorez, spelled backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Frank Franchi and Jeff Prosser on 1010XL tonight. Mondays at 7:30 following the Mark Brunell Show on CW17. News, opinion, debate, and special guests. 1010XL tonight. Brought to you by Zaxby's. Now let's go behind enemy lines. Brought to you by Riverside Paint Physicians.
Hayes Carline, Jaguars beat reporter for 1010XL, joins us from up in Cleveland. Good morning, Hayes. How was your trip?
Good morning, Lauren. It was a little rough. Had the old going down the runway in Atlanta, and they decided there's something wrong with the engine, so we're gonna have to go back. And we ended up having to get a new plane and everything like that. So it delayed us by a couple hours, but I am happy to report that I am here in Cleveland and ready to watch another dominant Jaguars defensive performance.
You got that right. The Jaguars do boast the most fearsome pass rush and corners in the NFL. Will that be the storyline when this game is over?
I think so, because I mean the Jaguars now are going to have even more of an asset with this with these conditions. I mean it's going to be, I think, difficult for Kaiser to do much at all throwing the ball, even if his receivers are able to get some separation occasionally. I think it's going to be hard for him to hit them in the wind. So I think this is a game where Marcel Darius, that acquisition comes up huge. And I mean, really, if I'm Hugh Jackson, I'm going to try and limit, Kaiser's attempts to probably around 20, which is really hard to do in this day and age of football. But I just think that Crowell is a decent back. Duke Johnson can do some things, but I think this is going to be a mismatch. And I don't know that the Jaguars will have a ton of success either offensively, but I think the Browns could just get swamped today.
Yeah, Hayes, Thursday night, at the end of the game, I heard Tirico and Collinsworth on the call of the Pittsburgh-Tennessee game talking about the AFC playoff picture, and, they felt like there were two really good teams at the top, and is there another team in the AFC that can step in and really push New England or the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Jaguars were mentioned, and I think this is a week where you're not going to sell anybody to be a believer in the Jacksonville Jaguars by beating the Cleveland Browns. I don't even think it matters how badly you beat the Browns today. I don't think you're going to sell anybody on it, but you can really hurt your reputation if you don't find a way to beat the Cleveland Browns today. And honestly, I said it earlier on the show today, Hayes, for all this talk about this is a team that's built to make a deep run in the playoffs, if they don't beat Cleveland today, I'm done talking about that kind of stuff and that kind of storyline with this football team if they're going to lose to the Jets and the Browns in the same season.
Right, and I think it's a good point, Tony, and I think the thing that the Jaguars have shown us that they have a swagger and that they have a confidence, and this is sort of what I wrote for 1010XL.com leading up to the game, is we know that. We know that you guys have talent and that you believe that, and that's awesome. But, and you've got to have it to be a championship contender. But you also have to have something else that we really haven't seen, and that's a maturity. that's a ability to handle this assignment, which is go on the road in a tough tough weather condition and beat an outmatched team. I mean, the Browns are clearly outmatched. Do they have some talent? Yes, they have some talent, but I mean, this should be a one-sided game. Now, if the Jaguars only have to win by a point, you don't have to go out there and do what you did against the Texans in Houston in Week 1 or the Ravens in London or anything like that. Just go out and get the victory. But if you don't, then I don't know that this team has the maturity and savvy needed to really be a legitimate contender. So we know this team is talented. They now need to show that they have the kind of maturity that we've seen from the Steelers and the Patriots to go out and handle business. I mean, like, the Steelers are a prime example. They laid a total egg against the Colts, but they were able to salvage it in time to get the victory, and that's all that counts. So I do think it's a big test today, and if the Jaguars don't get a win, then you're going to see a familiar narrative from around the country, which is shame on us for believing in the Jaguars.
Hey, it's going to be terrible weather for this Florida team, who we all know has a limited passing game and a banged-up running back. What key offensive position do you think shines today and picks up the slack?
I think T.J. Yeldon could have about 100 yards all-purpose in a game like this because, for one, we don't know how effective Fournette will be, if he'll even be active. And I think, Chris Ivory can certainly help in the ground game. But this, to me, feels like the kind of game where you'd like to try and get T.J. Yeldon 5 or 6 catches on easy throws that sort of negate the wind, and try and see if he can pop one, and I think he can. So I think T.J. Yeldon's going to get more touches in this game than what we're used to seeing.
This is the time of year when injuries pile up. How will the offense be affected without offensive lineman Jeremy Parnell, Patrick Omame, and wide receiver Allen Hurns?
Yeah, the offensive line is tricky, but what I think I would do if I was Doug Marrone and Nathaniel Hackett is obviously you've got Cam Robinson at left tackle. I'd put Tyler Shatley at left guard. I'd keep Linder at center. Obviously, A.J. Cann would be my right guard. And then I'd go Josh Walker at right tackle over Josh Wells. I just think that Wells is more of a finesse player than a power player, and I think he's miscast at right tackle. And maybe it's unfair to judge him solely on going up against what the Chargers present. But last week I thought he got dominated. And Josh Walker has never started a game, but he's a bigger guy. And I think at this point, I would rather see him out there. He has played in over 20 NFL games. He's just never started one. So this isn't a guy that, it's not like a Jadon Mickens or a D.D. Westbrook where he'd be, making his debut or playing in one of his first few NFL games. But I'd like to see Josh Walker. They need more power at right tackle than they do pass protection today. So I would try Josh Walker there. And then obviously if he gets off to a slow start, then you can go to Josh Wells. But based on what I saw last week, that would be the adjustment I would make because I thought right tackle was a major weakness against the Chargers.
Well, we'll see. That would be a bold move if that's the direction they choose to go on that offensive line. One of the other stories coming out of the moves they made yesterday, obviously D.D. Westbrook, we expect to see for the first time today in a regular season game. Also, to me, Hayes, and it's something I talked about early on in the show, look, they're putting Aurelius Ben on IR, which I think is a big deal for this football team from a special teams perspective. He's a core 4 guy. He's the guy who is the gunner on punt coverage. I think that's a big loss for this football team that's been inconsistent this year when it comes to special teams to this point. Blair Brown questionable today as well. He's a special teams guy. At some point, we saw it last week, it finally felt like a tipping point of sorts with Parnell unable to play, was finally maybe that last straw that pushed them over the edge a little bit on that offensive line. I wonder where the tipping point is for this special teams unit that's been good for the last month or so, but like I said, pretty inconsistent this year.
It is. It's a concern, and the wind only compounds that because you don't really know where it's going to be blowing, what direction, and will it be consistent throughout the game on one side, and then it's sort of easier to game plan it, or is it swirling and does it make life tough on Nortman? Because I mean, a big kind of X factor in this game is whoever punts that has a great chance to win, and that's not exciting, and that doesn't get people thrilled, but it's just a fact. I mean, if the Browns could have 4 or 5 turnovers, so I mean, it's hard to know how many times they'll punt, but I'm guessing it's going to be over 6 or 7. I think the Jaguars will be kind of in the same boat, where they'll have a few drives that they're able to sustain and score, but a lot of the times I think you're going to see Norman come in to finish things off. So, if one team has a 8-9 yard advantage on their net, punt, then over the course of the game that can really make a difference if it's tight. So, yeah, I think it's a concern because even once Norman gets it off, see it's a good kick, particularly if he has the win, and it adds an extra 7-8 yards to his punt. Now you worry about, the classic if you outkick your coverage. So I do think this is going to be a big test for the Jaguars special teams and Joe DeCamillo to have that unit. They just need a split today. I mean, they don't need to do anything. If they can do something that helps win the game, then obviously that's fantastic. But I think if I'm Doug Marrone, what I'm trying to get out of my special teams in this matchup is just a draw.
Hayes, last week we saw a Jaguars rushing offense that struggled to get established. If Fournette can't go or he's limited, will Ivory be able to step into that role? Because he wasn't able to do it effectively last week, and I'm wondering how this run game sort of stands for their future games if Fournette is limited.
Right, and Ivory is a good number 2 back, but I think there's an incredible difference between the two. And Ivory's looked good at times, but it is a concern. I mean, if Chris Ivory is your number 2 back, then I think you're in better shape than most. But he's not Leonard Fournette, so I do think it'll be interesting to see and what they end up doing because Fournette just didn't look like himself last week. Obviously, didn't practice Friday, so I mean my guess is he'll be inactive. So I think Chris Ivory, if he runs as hard as we've seen against Cincinnati and so forth, then I think they can still pull out a win here. I just think it's going to really come down to can the defense, put up that kind of game that we've seen where the offense just sort of needs to get out of the way and let the defense take care of it. You hate to put this kind of an expectation on the defense, but there is a chance today that this defense will account for more points than it allows.
Hayes, you caught up. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
You caught up with Jaguar safety Barry Church. His head coach called him the voice of reason this week. Does that speak more to Church or to the other guys that he's back there in the secondary with, in Ramsey and Boye and Gibson?
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting comment by Marrone. You sort of need that yin and yang, and we know the Jaguars have the swaggers of Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Colvin, AJ Boye, and Deshaun Gibson, but you do need sort of that balance. I think Barry Church brings it in the secondary. Not only has he been incredibly productive, but I do think they've got the right blend of personalities there, and I think Barry Church sort of helps balance things out. So it was fun talking to him, and he's obviously been a dynamic addition for the Jaguars.
Well, I hope your coat made it up to Cleveland there, Hayes.
It did.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the game day. Stay warm. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
And thanks to Hayes for catching up with Jaguar safety Barry Church.
Please be joined with Jaguar safety Barry Church here on 1010XL 92.5 FM. Barry, just talking to Doug yesterday, he called you the voice of reason on the defense. I'm sure that's been brought to your attention, but what's that like? First year here, but to be kind of considered that person that can be trusted by the coaching staff to kind of deliver a message.
I mean, it's a great honor just to be known to the coach as one of the leaders that can basically calm situations down. And that's just how I kind of look at life. It's just my demeanor. I'm a calm dude. I kind of don't let my emotions get the best of me. I always kind of think clear-headed. So I mean, I guess that's why they consider me kind of the voice of reason, because I'm not always yelling at somebody or in somebody's face. But I'll take full responsibility for that, and if it helps us win, I'm all for it.
What's it been like as you guys have sort of gelled as a defense? So, going all the way back to training camp, has it come along as you'd hoped? Has it been even better than you expected?
I definitely felt it's been better than I even expected. I mean, coming into the situation, I knew they had a good defense last year. I think they were 6th in the league when it was all said and done. So I knew I was coming into a great situation, but I had no idea, the hunger and the passion these guys play with, and just the speed that they play with. I mean, it's unremarkable. And then adding pieces like Darius, to our mix just makes our defense that much better. I'm just glad I'm on the right side of things.
The Browns have obviously had some struggles on offense, but what do you see out of them that kind of gives you a little bit of a concern, and what kind of challenges will the Browns present for you guys?
I would say their backs, both of their backs are pretty explosive and pretty elusive, and they're hard to break down. Isaiah Crowell, when he runs the ball between the tackles, he's one of the hardest guys to tackle in the game. And then you got Duke Johnson coming out of the backfield. He's a great wide receiver. So when they check the ball down to him, it's going to be very important that we kind of tackle him in the open field.
What a contrast between him and Deshaun.
That's the thing that gives us the biggest problem.
What about this offense? We're going to 40-0. We're going to shut them out. They're not going to win a game this year. He's one of the hardest guys to tackle in the league. No, he's not. Very.
That guy right there, I mean, he's one of the most explosive and one of the better safeties I've ever played with. I mean, he's smart. He knows what he's doing back there. If I'm not making the checks, he's making the checks, so he makes my job a lot easier. And like I said, I mean, I'm probably one of the best safeties I've ever played with.
You guys have been able to see Marcel Darius now for a couple weeks. What's he brought to the defense since he was brought here by trade?
Yeah.
Oh, just another great presence out there. I mean, shooting Pro Bowl player, veteran, a guy that's proven in this league. And for him to go out there, I know we had some problems stopping the run earlier in the year, and then as soon as he came in, I feel like these past couple weeks we've been stalemating the run. I mean, he's in there 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2s. He's stuffing the run.
I don't think I've ever heard stalemating used as a verb.
He's just another added piece to a dynamic defense that we need, and I'm glad he's on our team as well.
Barry, what's it like for you when you get to this point in the year? How much of it is still trying to improve things technique-wise or fit in with the scheme, and how much of it is just getting ready for the next opponent and things like that? When you're at this stage of your career.
I think it more the techniques. I mean, I feel like I have those pretty much all down pat. Scheme. I mean, I have it all OTAs, all training camp to learn the scheme and how it works and everything like that. So now, for me, it's just who we have next.
You can bring it back and say what you said about the difference between Church and Gibson.
Plays, learning who they like to go to, top targets, this, that, and the third. So that's what I put all my attention into leading up to the game. It's just that team and who we're playing against. I get my stuff right early in the week, Monday, Tuesdays when we're off. I get my body right and everything like that. But as the game gets closer, I kind of put all my pressure and all my focus on that team and their top tendencies.
Barry, you guys have had some unbelievable defensive performances, but what was it like and what did it say about the clutch ability of this defense to get those 2 turnovers Sunday late in the game against the Chargers?
It just shows the level that we're growing at. I mean, earlier in the season we had great defensive performances, but I wasn't quite sure if that game would have happened earlier in the season if we pull it out. But we come together closer each and every game, and this defense just proves that when our backs are against the wall, when this team's back is against the wall, you can put it on our shoulders and we'll make something happen. And Malik was able to get that ball out in clutch situations. Deshaun was able to scoop it up. I think it should have been touchdown, but hey, it is what it is. And then that following series, we were able to stop them from 3 and out and get the ball back for our offense. So we just know as a defense and as a team that if you want to put it on our shoulders, we're willing to take the responsibility for that. And hopefully going forward, it continues.
Barry Church, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck on Sunday.
Appreciate it.
Barry trying to earn that voice of reason label that he got from his coach there during the week is he's asked about this Cleveland Browns team, and he's like, these 2 running backs, Isaiah Crowell, he's one of the hardest guys to tackle in the league. Deshaun Gibson gets asked about this Cleveland Browns team. He's like, they're going to go 0-16. We're going to beat them 40-0. Like, that's what Gibson said compared to what the voice of reason in that locker room. And look, listen to those other 3 guys in that secondary talk. I think they need one. I think it's good to have a little bit of that balance, even though it is fun to listen to Gibson say what he says and Ramsey say what he says and Boye say what he says. It's not bad to have one guy in that group that's going, you know what, these guys, they're not terrible on the other side, fellas. It's still an NFL team over there. Let's get ready to go.
Who's the voice of reason on our show?
I don't know.
It ain't me.
I have no idea.
Can the Jaguars get to 7-3? We'll give you our predictions next. Stay tuned to 1010XL.
Enter the 1010XL Weekly Football Pick'em Contest. Brought to you by Gold Point and
I like Barry.
Tax Law. Log on to 1010XL.com. Weekly winners score tasty food from Senor.
The all-new Duval Ford is now open.
Because if he was just like the other, really the other 4, because Colvin can be a bit of a...
Colvin's that way too.
Yeah, a bit of a hothead, then I feel like they would all just be much more about individual performance than team performance, and I feel like he kind of reminds them like, hey guys, this unit's only as good as all of us together. I could be wrong. Maybe they would be just as good if nobody cared about anything other than themselves.
Moments of sexual intimacy, a thing of the past.
Works until you lose.
You. You know, it's not often in a season that I want to go back and replay teams. You know, usually it's, at this point in the season, it's like, ugh, when is it over? I want to go back and replay the Rams. That's the game I want back. I don't care about the Jets. The Jets was a fluke.
Jets is a conference game. I want it back.
Yeah, I get that part. But I really want to replay the Rams.
They got a win over. If they had a win over the Jets, like if that's all that changed,
yeah.
they're the 2 seed right now.
Yeah.
Well,
You're right. Which, by the way,
Mike and I were going over all the scenarios.
I blame Jalen for not touching Bilal Powell.
Yeah. I mean, Mike and I were going over all the scenarios this week, and I was like, we don't have to talk about this if they just beat the Jets. Like, it's going to be there all year.
Yeah.
Shouldn't lose to them.
It's funny, you at 6-3, you can still find so many flaws in this team. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah, but that's everybody this year.
Yeah.
There were people who thought that Patriots team was going unbeaten.
Right.
There's an awful lot of people in the roofing business right now, but one you can truly trust are my friends at Superior. Call them today, 250-5053 for Superior Roofing and Restoration.
Global Diamonds is breaking all the rules this weekend with the biggest sale of the year. 3 days of incredible savings store-wide. Save an extra 20% and more on virtually everything. Rings, earrings, pendants, bands, colored gemstones. Huge markdowns across the board. Truly incredible value. And the selection at Global is like double with entire designer lines flown in. This is the best pre-holiday buying opportunity ever. Biggest sale all year with nothing held back. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only at Global Diamonds at the Markets and Town Center.
Kevin, have you done your homework? Yep. Cleaned your room? Yep. Walked the dog? Yep. Made up your bed? Yep. Taken out the garbage? Brushed your teeth? Put your laundry away? Yep.
Looks like the last segment's going to be about 12 minutes.
Is that longer than normal?
I mean, it depends. Like, we've had it as long as like 15 before, and then sometimes shorter, but in the middle, I guess.
Depending on, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, last week I made 5 picks.
What?
I did your lock and upset too. I just did 2.
Did you do well with the picks?
Yeah, I think I went 4-1.
Nice. All right, good.
I called the 49ers upset.
I wish we were keeping track of these. I guess we could go back and listen to it, but... Matt, after the show, I know that we don't normally keep these shows, but is there a way that you can send me the Danny Catullo interview? Or just like isolate it and then send it to me?
I'm pretty sure I can, I've never done, we usually, like, dang, would you want me to start, like, recording it through Audition? Like, I can start doing that even, too. But there should be a way for me to go back in the system and get that. Yeah.
Well, I know we ran into the issue with last year, because I guess we only kept them on the on-demand for however long it stays.
Yeah.
But the interviews like that, like, I'd love to be able to, write up a blog post on them and include it.
I should be able to, I'm not sure exactly how to do that. I can give Ryan a text right now and he'll tell me how to do that, so I can,
Yeah, because I remember asking Steve about it before the season, if we could start getting just the outside the 904, just because it's so, you can do a lot of good networking with it, especially like sharing wise. So maybe like in the future we could just isolate that.
Yeah, we can easily do that.
Because then it's not as
If you ask him ahead of time,
time-sensitive.
he can record it, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
That would be the easiest. I can just record that part,
Perfect.
I'll message Ryan and see how
You'll have to wait until the hour goes into the...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I know there's a way to do it. I haven't personally done that,
Sure.
but I know that it's capable of doing that.
Yeah, you just have to wait until the hour goes, but then they stay... How long do they stay, Tony, in the system?
A week.
A week, okay. So you... Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that for you.
Awesome.
So the 9 o'clock hour from last week is now gone.
Right.
About 30 seconds left.
Okay, thanks.
It's being recorded over.
Ideally I would love to have those each week.
Yeah, it's a lot easier if he knows in advance, and then he just records it in there.
I haven't really, there hasn't, but outside of John McClane, there hasn't been one that I'm like, yes, we have to get that one.
All right, right, Blythe and Tony, it's that time of the show where we make our picks. We kick it off with the lock of the week. Blythe, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs over the Giants. It's 10.5-point favorites in that Chiefs game, and it's the Chiefs are one of the most stable franchises in the league, and I think that, you know, the Giants, they just have a mess of an organization now that Tom Coughlin is here in Jacksonville, and thank you for that, Giants, but I think the Chiefs definitely get that win over them today.
I have the same one, and here's my stat. Andy Reid has a 16-2 record coming off the bye week. The Giants also, by the way, are 1-8 and look like they quit a while ago. So I'm with you. What do you have, Tony? Are you going against your former team?
Oh yeah. The Giants stink. They suck out loud. That's what the Giants do this year. I mean, they are absolutely terrible, and it feels like there's a borderline mutiny in that locker room. Like sometimes you get teams that are this bad. And you can see, you know, they have a players meeting this week, and McAdoo apparently got into him, and I guess he was pleading for his job, maybe. I'm not saying that's what happened. He might have been, though. Guys, please, they're going to fire me. You got to figure out something. We're losing to the Niners. Like, what are we doing? This is New York. They're not going to settle for any of this. We were in the playoffs last year. What happened? That panic mode. And look, if you're going to say that to a room full of guys that you keep suspending, then they're just going to go, who cares if you're gone? Right? Like, I don't think this is a locker room that really cares about Ben McAdoo or what his future is with the New York Giants. And the Giants, they've had a history of this where they hit a coach, they miss a coach, they hit a coach. So them missing on Ben McAdoo, not all that much of a surprise following Tom Coughlin winning a couple of Super Bowls up there in New York. But yeah, the Chiefs today, pretty easy, I think, over the Giants. And now they're likely going to be without Sterling Shepard, who's their leading receiver, so they're back to that just mash unit at that position. And people keep talking about, well, let's go to the next quarterback, see what's happening after Eli. If you think you're going to learn anything about a quarterback playing after Eli with this group of weapons that they have right now in New York, you're wrong. The line stinks. The run game stinks. They got a rookie playing tight end that Eli Manning's making look pretty good right now. You put somebody else in there, especially rookie Davis Webb, all you're going to see is a guy turning the ball over a ton.
Yeah, and to me that storyline is more about, can the Giants get the second pick? Because right now they're tied with the 49ers and as far as the one win. So that, to me, the only reason you play Davis Webb is because you're trying to lose the rest of your football games.
And it's wild to me how much of a drastic change in organizational structure and the way an organization functions without Tom Coughlin. You saw the downslide of the Jaguars when he left, and then the uptick of the Giants, and then now look, it's just a reverse swing with those two teams, and he is the lone, not the variable.
Yeah, and you don't know how much, as far as the Jaguars' culture is Marrone versus Coughlin, or
I think it's both.
And obviously they're on the same page and think alike. But it is interesting that one team basically tanks and the other one now is.
Says a lot about lack of leadership that we've had in the organization, and now it's sort of reestablished.
Tony, who's your upset pick?
My upset this week, Green Bay over Baltimore. Green Bay is a home dog against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens play a lot of defense. They don't play much offense. I think today that the Green Bay Packers at home find a way against the Ravens.
Live?
I'm going to go with Atlanta over Seattle. I think that Falcons offense gets back on track this week against an aging and increasingly injured Seattle defense.
Yeah, they are losing people left and right. Seattle is. So we finally have one where we're all on different wavelengths. I've got the Texans at home over the Cardinals. Blaine Gabbert cannot lead Arizona to win on the road. Does anybody disagree with that?
I'm kind of rooting for
the Texans stink. They don't play much defense. Their pass defense is a mess right now. They're not stopping anybody on the ground.
They have a top 10 rushing defense.
That's an old stat. I'm telling you, that's an old stat. I've watched them for the last 3 weeks since they lost their two big guns.
Maybe.
They're terrible.
Still top 10.
You've got the Cardinals to beat the Texans.
I'm saying that
even
they
with
can.
Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, I'm saying that they can. I thought that Blaine Gabbert should have been the number 2 quarterback, honestly, in Arizona. Based on what we saw out of him in the preseason compared to Drew Stanton, I was surprised he didn't win the number 2 job.
And
I want him to play. Come on, bring on Blaine Gabbert, please.
Absolutely.
It's good for the soul here in Jacksonville. If this defensive line gets a chance to go up against Blaine Gabbert, please let us see that. Please, Arizona.
And it'll be the first time if we face off against Blaine Gabbert with the Jaguars in Arizona here in a couple weeks, and it'll be the first time that we've ever faced the first-round quarterbacks. And Byron Leftwich is the QB coach for Arizona, and then there's Blaine Gabbert and Blake Bortles.
Oh.
That is a 425, 405 or 425 game?
I think it's 405.
I'm not sure which it is.
Either way.
Maybe
we will
425.
be,
425.
We will be on with you guys a little later on that Sunday. All right, now to the big game up in Cleveland. Jaguars v. Browns at 1 o'clock today. Tony, who's winning this football game?
Who's winning this football game? You know, last week I gave you the 49ers getting off the schneid.
Yep, you did.
Finally getting the win against the lowly Giants.
You know your Giants well.
Because I think the Giants might actually be the worst team in football this year. And they just happen to have won a game already. They screwed it up by beating Denver earlier this year. But this week, do I give you the only other winless team? Heck no. The Cleveland Browns. I'm telling you, if they beat the Jags, I would be furious. If I was a Jags fan, they find a way to win this. They find a way to lose this thing. I mean, furious with this football team if they find a way to lose this one today. It's a football team that can't throw the ball. I was telling you about DeShone Kizer and the interception numbers. He's throwing an interception basically 5% of the times that he throws the ball, which is a ridiculous number in the NFL. He's got 12 interceptions on 250 attempts. Okay, to give you an idea of how stupid that is, Cam Newton is second in the league with 11 interceptions on 322 attempts. It's 72 more attempts with one less interception than DeShone Kizer. That's how terrible he has been this season going up against this team. The question I've been asking myself all week for all these people that are like, man, I got a bad feeling. How the heck are the Browns going to score? Honestly, how do they score once against this Jaguars team with the way that they play defense right now? I got them scoring once.
Wow.
Running the ball, probably.
I even got him
Not
scoring
by throwing
twice.
it.
I think it's going to be something like 13-3 at half, and I think in the second half, DeShone Kizer turns into the turnover machine that he's been, and they get away from this team. My final prediction is 30-10. Jags get the win today.
All right, Blythe.
To me, this game is about turning corners. We saw last week that this was a team that battled back through adversity. They battled back from being down, and they came out on top in overtime against the Chargers. This week, I think this is it. This is a game that the Jaguars should win, and if they don't win, it's going to be terribly embarrassing. Don't wait for the division to be handed to you, even more so than it already is. Today is the day that you need to go out and take it. Jaguars win 24-9.
24-9, okay. If the Jaguars can get 150 yards on the ground, you guys say this is a Jaguars win easy, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because the Browns have a negative 13 turnover differential, and DeShone Kizer hasn't played a game this entire season where he hasn't thrown a pick, and no other NFL team can say that.
Yeah, I think Ivory will be able to run against the Browns. Yes, they're number 4 in the league in rushing defense. I think they're 4.
3 overall, I think. Either way, they're top 5.
Yeah. I've got Jaguars 26, Browns 10, and I'm a little nervous that the 26 is high because one of my keys is the Jaguars should play conservatively on offense. Don't go throwing the ball all over the place. Don't try to go deep. It's not that big of a deal. Just try and run the football and let your defense score.
Yeah, the defense is going to get a couple scores today.
Couple scores she's got. I got the Jaguars defense getting 1 score and a safety. So I guess technically that's 2, but 1 touchdown. All right, so Thanksgiving is Thursday. How much Jaguars conversation will be had at y'all's dinner tables? Or at least during the day?
It'll be dominated by it, probably. Because Thanksgiving is such a great day. All you do is eat and watch football all day. So obviously we're going to talk about a winning team, a winning franchise, a first-place team, hopefully.
Who's playing on Thursday? I don't even know. I haven't looked at
Who
it.
cares?
There's 3 different games.
I'm kidding. Well, the Lions and the Cowboys always play, so whoever they're playing against.
Yeah. Vikings, Lions at 12:30. Chargers, Cowboys at 4:30, and the late game is going to be a wonderful game of the Giants, Redskins.
Oh my gosh. They thought they had something. They were making that schedule. They were like, this is going to be awesome.
Such a, divisional battle. And,
although you never know. I mean, we were all laughing a handful of years ago when Jets-Patriots turned out to be the Thursday night game, and the Jets were so terrible. But we were all gifted with the butt fumble. That was a Thursday night. That was Thanksgiving night that we got gifted with the butt fumble. So you never know. Maybe Eli has something stupid happen to him this year on Thanksgiving. It's not like you won't be watching. You're watching. We all know you're watching.
Today is the anniversary of the butt fumble. I thought I heard that on SportsCenter this morning. So poor Mark Sanchez.
Date.
The anniversary date of the butt fumble.
Yeah, we start our Thanksgiving morning out with a turkey trot, which will be a whole lot of fun as long as it's not raining. I need no rain for the turkey trot. I've been training for this 5K, so I need it to be, you know, nice and sunny and beautiful. And then we'll have a few drinks at Pete's, and then we'll have the family get together. So I think between Pete's and everybody gathering around at both families, I think there's going to be quite a few people saying, "How about those Jaguars?" Yeah,
turn off the parade and talk Jags. Because why the heck are any of you still making the parade a thing on Thanksgiving? It's so stupid.
You watch it for 5 seconds, and then
I'm not a parade person.
Oh boy, a float.
And another one.
Snoopy. Who cares?
They just keep coming. Yeah,
Oh, Santa's gonna come. That's how I know it's the season. Man, in my house, we've been doing Christmas since July. You think you're gonna tell me when to start celebrating Santa? Ain't no way.
I love it.
But I will, Tony, finally watch Die Hard this week. Never seen Die Hard, and I said this, and Tony nearly gasped last year, so he brought in his DVD for me to watch, and I haven't watched it since. But since it's coming up on the Christmas season, and since Die Hard is a Christmas movie, I feel like I will kick it. Not the Christmas movie. Home Alone is the Christmas movie. I'll fight you on that.
Well, you haven't even seen it yet. You don't know. You can fight me after you see Die Hard.
I just know that Christmas is a pure time of the year, and Home Alone is more pure than Die Hard.
It's pure adrenaline.
Speaking of adrenaline, quick nod to the guitarist for AC/DC, Malcolm Young, who passed away yesterday. We close all of our shows out with little AC/DC and Thunderstruck, so certainly rest in peace. That is a wrap for us. Thanks to our producer, Matt LeVay, for making it all happen today. For Blythe Brumleve and Tony Smith, I'm Lauren Brooks. Thanks for listening to the 1010XL Kickoff, fueled by Sawyer Gas and presented by Coastal Equipment. Enjoy your Jaguars game day, and stay tuned for the Publix Tailgate Show with JP Shadrick and Mike Dempsey on 1010XL.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back here next Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. No, wait, next Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So,
thanks, Matt.
If you guys like it, leave a little comment. Let me know that you like it, and then we'll hopefully do these more in the future. So thank you guys again. Have a good Sunday. Go Jags.